the key to managing up is having a clear message and intent, and having solutions to go along with what you're providing. It's not necessarily just a end of week, oh, here's the progress that I made this week, whatever, but it's also providing information or important stuff in advance, because the last thing that you want as a manager or senior leadership is a surprise, right?
Leading Ain't Easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, Erny Epley, founder of Bus Pro Network, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy.
Welcome back to Leading Ain't Easy. Today, we really wanted to focus on leading when you don't have authority over the people who are essentially responsible for the success of your progression. And managing up is one of those skills that every leader really needs to learn, and often learn the hard way, like I did. And I'm sure Ernie had some areas in managing up, or at least learning the importance of managing up, both as a subordinate working your way up, as well as how important it can be when you're in the position where sometimes you can feel like you're operating blindly.
Thank you for breaking that down, Ryan. I appreciate it. It's getting me kind of right as soon as getting the gears going there a little bit. Just getting right into it. I could think of many examples because of the industry that I'm in. My department oftentimes leans on a lot of other departments, not just one, but there's just so many different moving pieces that have to fall into place to make our job work. We have to depend on a different department for maybe student ridership, the data that we need from there. We're depending on another set of folks for bell schedules and getting the timing right and getting all this going down. And so being that this is something close to me, got a lot of experience where it can be frustrating, and it can be frustrating for your team, and then trying to align yourself with not only with your team, but with the people you got to play nice with, right? Like, we're all in the same big old sandbox, and we all got to make it work, meaning as an agency. So, I would love to get in some of the discussions and some of the tools that we can give some folks who maybe have, their success is dependent upon an entire other department, and they have no way of getting the tools they need or the data they need to move forward, without. I mean, how do you do that? How do you foster that team?
But you also mentioned, the importance of the team, and just historically, like as a manager, or the managerial relationship has been more, top down. You're provided directives and you run with it, right? But things have kind of transitioned to where, like you said, you're part of a team, and it's a partnership between you and your manager, or as a manager, you and your staff. And I think that managing up becomes so much more critical there, because there's a lot of instances where, it comes into managerial types also, So I've had managers that are micromanagers, where it's like, dude, just give me some breathing room, And then I've had the managers that are very hands off, to where it's like, okay, can you give me a little bit of structure, something, and just trying to balance each one of those. And there's a different approach to communicating with each type, and that's really like the key to managing up, right? Is having a clear message and intent, and having solutions to go along with what you're providing. It's not necessarily just a end of week, oh, here's the progress that I made this week, whatever, but it's also providing information or important stuff in advance, because the last thing that you want as a manager or senior leadership is a surprise, right? So the more you know about it, and that, I mean, that's definitely something that I learned along the way, is when I try to show, oh, I've got my team under control. Like I don't, I've got it. Just trust me to do my job, and where something goes wrong and you're like, oh, I handle it in house. Well, you find out, well, maybe you shouldn't have handled that in house, because it's a bigger issue than you thought. And now you have your superior or his superior or hers coming down. And it's like, okay, well, what is going on? It's like, well, I took care of it. It's like, well, you didn't take care of it because it made its way to me. And it's like, okay, well, a simple email or something like, this is what I'm looking at. This is what actions we're taking. This is our plan going forward, just to give you a heads up so you're not caught off guard and in the dark, because that's the worst thing you want to put somebody in that is responsible for your job, is a big surprise.
Yeah, no one likes getting blindsided, and just to add to that, there are many times, throughout the course of my career in the different agencies that I've been part of. Early on in my career, I was like you. I wanted to keep it all in-house. I wanted to handle it all under me. I'm like, "I'm not gonna bother, John Flanagan with this because he's got a lot going on today, so I'm gonna keep that here," and then little did I know, like you, big old surprise, like, oh, I did not keep that here. It made its way there.
Mhm.
Um, and and so I've gotten to the point where I've, when I got to my previous place and then when I got to this district, I would, one of the very first one-on-ones I had with my bosses at both of those places, I was like, hey, I'm an over communicator. Like, I'm going to give you the heads up on a bunch of stuff. And just because I don't want you to get blindsided. Without fail, the 6 or 8 different bosses I've had between the two locations, they've all been appreciative of that, and that's something that I've taken from that and learned from that. And then I tell my team, that works for me here, with me here, is whether they're leads. I mean, hell, even if no matter what level or what title they have, that, hey, give me a heads up. Like, the last thing I want to do is be blindsided and not be able to defend you, or not
Mhm.
be able to be in your corner, right? So I think using language like that, and not only using the language but really meaning it, right? Being there for your team, and I always tell them, like, I can't be there for you if I don't know your side of the story, or I don't know the facts, or, right, you know what I mean? Like, give me the chance to be in your corner, give me the chance to have your back in this situation, and don't put me in a place where I can't have your back, right? So to your point, communication is very key, both up and down, man, and all throughout. uh you know has to happen.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I guess also in addition to the blindsided and the safeguarding piece, it's also, if I don't think you truly appreciate what, a manager or senior manager or whatever is dealing with until you're in the position. Because for you, this big project that you're working on is everything. And for a senior manager, your project is important, but it may be, the eighth thing down the line in terms of where my attention has to be that day or that week or that month. So if you're not coming to me and letting me know, like, hey, this is where this project is, these are the things I'm dealing with. And that's another thing that I don't know. I guess I don't know if I learned it the hard way, but it's something that I learned as I matured in my career, was that, if I came to you with something, you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that tomorrow or whatever. I'm like, well, screw you, dude. Like, I'm doing
Yeah.
this, for this department. Like, it means something, but you don't truly appreciate that there are a lot of other competing priorities. And when I think being able to put yourself in the mindset of your manager or your manager's manager when you're thinking about, managing up and providing and relaying information, not just safeguarding, but it could just be a project that you're working on, or something to say, these are the issues that I've dealt with. This is my plan of action to correct them. This is where we're headed. This is the new timeline, whatever it is. And it's real quick for Ernie to take a look at it and say, oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. Oh, for this piece, you may want to look here. So instead of trying to shoulder everything on your own and push it forward, it's also like, well, Ernie, it's not that Ernie doesn't care what I'm working on, because it also matters for the department, but he's only aware of what he's aware of. And he's got so much going on that unless I provide this communication and opportunity for him to provide insight and suggestion instead of saying, oh, well, Ernie is responsible for this department. He should be able to tell me what to do, any given moment. So I think that's another piece is being able to be proactive in what you're pushing forward, give somebody a smaller scope of something to review and provide insight and feedback for, or even say, hey, I think you would benefit from having these resources and helping to allocate them.
Yeah, for sure. And what you're talking about is something that I briefly touched on in a previous episode. And I believe it was the one where we were talking about leading with empathy. And by all means, we should lead with empathy. That is our job is as leaders, right, to lead. And to do that with empathy is going to help you out down the line. And so there is a huge focus on that, but sometimes often gets overlooked is what you were just talking about, is the following with empathy, right? Following those above, knowing that, good example is the current organizational structure where I'm in right now. My boss happens to be one of the ones, pretty much the main one, who has the purse, so to speak, right? Has all the funding and is in control of that. And, I'm one of 18, 17 directors that all have departments, right? You're talking about a $500 million budget, and all of us are coming up to him with our hands, our palms up, saying,
Please, sir,
I
can I
need,
have some more?
yeah, exactly, right? And when you're talking about education, yes, I honestly believe, and it's my sincere belief, that every one of my colleagues in my current institution have the kids' best interest at heart. And I've said this privately, and I'll say it very publicly, man. Like, this is one of the first places I've been to, and this might shock you, or this might be it's kind of a crazy statement to say, but this is the first place I've been to where there hasn't been a hell of a lot of me first, right? In the leadership aspect of it.
Until you got
Um,
there? Or?
yeah, I fixed it. It was me. I brought this on. No, like it was weird stepping into this because, like I said, this is the third uh, agency school district that I've been
Mhm.
at where, in management, and this is the first time I could really honestly say, like, I don't know. And of course, things have weeded their outs, and there's different levels to this shit. But most of everybody, and almost everybody, I'm trying to think of if there's been an exception to this, or there's an exception right now. There isn't, man. Like, this really is a good leadership team, man. When we get together and we have our leadership meetings, there's a lot of camaraderie there because we really do have the same goal in mind, and that speaks a lot to our board of education and the pieces that they've put in place to help us be
Mhm.
successful. I'm not here trying to give a commercial for my school district, but I mean, it really is my sincere feeling. So where I was going with that is that every one of us, when we come to the table to our boss, or our senior leadership in the board of education, saying, hey, we need money for this stuff, it's not for any kind of selfish reason. Like, it's all very warranted spending. It's public funds, but by the way. So but it's like having that empathy for my leaders, the
Mhm.
folks who I call boss, saying, man, yeah, we need buses. I'll just put that in there to be, but man, curriculum, they need a lot over there. Oh, and they need a lot over at technology too, or any other department. I mean, we got to feed our kids, right? Like, these are all things where the more you understand the finite resources that your boss is dealing with, whether it's in this case funding or time or energy or management, like, the more you understand that, I think the more you start to appreciate and can then become a better leader yourself.
You know what? I want
And
to
so
let me add on to what you just said about being cognizant of your leader and manager and things like that. I think on top of that, observing how a particular manager receives information, like if he or she is a visual person, and you can provide graphs or charts or whatever. If they're more a conversational learner where they can talk it out and you bring things that way, adding on to that piece and really just kind of tuning in to those nuances of that particular manager will also help you stand out as a leader, because not only are you providing the relevant information and doing it in the as if you are that manager and trying to understand where they're coming from, but you're also taking the extra step to present the information in the way that it will best be received.
100%. One thing I do want to mention too is careful not to get tunnel vision. On a previous topic, there was some feedback in one of our socials about uh, it had to do with one of the shorts we posted about losing friendships along the way, along the career climb, and some of the feedback, which I'm very thankful for this. Thank you for those who commented this, by the way. Was, oh yeah, like, if they go from buddy to boss, as long as they're cool, just be cool. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a dick. And granted, that's great advice. Don't be a dick, Ryan. Um, However, what I see more often than not, and those comments were two of the latest in what I've heard thousands and thousands live, right, in these situations. And I'll bring it back to leading up here in a second, but or managing up, excuse me. Um, so often the reason that these things start to break down is because it's not me being a jerk. Like, as much as I try and lay out the specifics and get into painful detail why I have to have this conversation with you and why there's documentation to follow, it's it just goes away because there's just a tunnel vision of, oh no, this is affecting me, this is blah blah blah, blah. And you don't, there's a lack of accountability there. And I'm not saying that the two folks who commented or the feedback that was that, very much it could be that their friend was cool until they started making money or was the boss. I get that, but what I'm trying to say is, like, really do yourself a favor in that situation, as well as when you're managing up, to take yourself out of it, man. It's hard to do because we're egocentric as individuals, right? As people, it's hard to take those blinders off, because we only want to see what affects us, and we're all guilty of it. But just little food for thought.
Well, I shared the story before when I was in the military and got promoted amongst my peers, and there was it wasn't even a hesitancy to not listen. It was just a more casual, oh, I'll get to it. And it's like, well, no, I need you to do it right now. And it's not like me trying to be a dick or anything else and coming in, oh, well, I've got this title now, suck it. You're this peasant now. Like, it's it's the failed adjustment of the friend that didn't get promoted to see that, okay, there's a little bit of a change in communication and responsibility now, to where, okay, we can still be friends, but when it comes to work and there's certain tasks and objectives, okay, I have two options, right? I can adjust and work with my friend to make sure that things get done, because I've never seen anybody step into a leadership role and all of a sudden it's like, I'm no longer friends with anybody. Well, I take that back. I did have somebody who he thought that once he got to the next level, he couldn't have friends below anymore, because it was like he had read somewhere that, it's like blurred lines between leadership and this and that, and he had to draw this hard line in the sand. And I'm like, well, no, you don't. You just need to be clear on what your expectations are and what the new relationship at work is, and you can still be cordial and joking and keep a friendly relationship. But what happens is when the other person doesn't adjust as well, or they assume because you're friends, you'll get preferential
Yeah.
treatment or things
Yeah.
like that, then it's like, well, screw you, dude. You changed. Like, you're not the same person. It's like, well, you're not, because you have this different level of responsibility, but also you are.
Yeah. Shifting gears a little here, I want to talk about a time where, 'cause a lot on this podcast, and I appreciate it, because I feel it makes it feel more authentic. You and I get into situations where we've failed and given the cautionary tale of don't do this. I want to get into something, and perhaps you have one as well, where we've been successful. And I want to preface this by saying this doesn't happen overnight. This has taken years of working with this person that it has developed into this. So, the industry I'm in, that we deal a lot with the public, and they are at times cannot be friendly, and so and we've talked about this before. Even the way it's packaged, right? The feedback, we'll call it, even if it's packaged in a hey, f you, what the f are you doing, all this stuff. Um, if we screwed up, we need to own it, right? No matter how it comes back to us. But in this particular case, we did not do. I mean, we did what we were supposed to do. Like our service was fantastic. So, as is so often the case with any institution, any agency you're going to be a part of, or any place of employment, is, well, let me talk to your manager, and then they go on up, 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 up until they get as high as they can go. But one of the things that we had an instance, excuse me, here um where there was a complaint lodged. I investigated it, and like, no, we're doing what we're supposed to, and I'm sorry, but we cannot provide the level of service what you're wanting, right? And again, without getting into details, it was something that was just we couldn't do, and something to think about, that perhaps will make this make a little more sense is, I can't provide a service to one family or student that I can't provide to everyone. I have to be able to make it equitable across the board. If if I'm saying I'm going to go knock on your door, when my driver's going to go knock on your door and help you get your kid ready for school, right? I'm using a way an example that's unrational, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if I can't do that for every student, then I can't do it for yours, right? And that's just an example because it's unrealistic. But
Does that
this was,
depend on how much they're willing to pay, or?
yeah, they pay, and then they directly to me, cash only, cannot be. No, just joking.
He's kidding, just for the record. He's never
Okay.
taken any money to provide preferential treatment, to my knowledge.
So the story's already gone long enough, but I'll just kind of wrap it up and saying, like, hey, I couldn't do it for you. I can't, if I can't do it for everybody, I can't do it for you. And knowing that this had been my MO during my time here, when it got to the folks above me, I didn't have time to give them the heads up to, hey, this might be coming up the chain, blah, blah. I usually try and do that, but this was something that was crazy. Like, it happened lightning quick, where it got to my boss before I had a chance to go soften the blow. But what was beautiful about it was my boss replied in writing and added me to the communication. And without talking to him, he said the exact same thing that I had told the parent, exactly the same. And you would think, like, well, no, duh, equity, that does make sense. Your boss should be, but sometimes, man, I've had bosses where they wanted to be the hero, so they don't mind throwing me under the bus, right? And saying, like, I'm going to direct him to blah 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 blah. No, it was really awesome to see almost verbatim his response being lined up with mine. So there are times when you manage up well and you develop that relationship, and exactly what it is that your boss, when you guys are in sync, chef's kiss, man. It works out really well.
No, so we're talking about the hardships and the wins. I had a very difficult boss one time that was a super micromanager, to where it was like, right here. I'm like, dude, back up,
I
and
smell onions.
dude, I would die. I hate onions so much. Um,
I know you
no,
hate onions. That's why I said that.
but it was constantly just, like, it just felt like there was zero trust at all. And I'm just like, okay, I started to manage up just to get this guy off my back because it was so annoying. It was like I was over communicating, like, to the point to where it felt completely ridiculous. But the more that I did it, the more that I shared, the more I did, he backed off and off and off. And then I think the win was, well, it was a further dip, I guess, because when I got into a leadership position to where I felt myself starting to micromanage and realize that not all micromanagers, it's like this need for authority and power. A lot of it is fear of your own failure, and not trusting others to, hit deadlines or whatever. And it became, I don't know, clearer for me that having had
Haven't had?
having gone through it, I was able to see it when I started to do the same thing, and I was able to kind of to step back. But I think the real win for me was when I went from a kind of micromanaging atmosphere to later having a boss that was like, figure it out, I'm here if you need anything, otherwise I don't exist. And being able to kind of manage up with the experience that I had with the micromanager, it was a lot
Mhm.
easier to provide context and everything up to the very hands-off manager, but it was also a way to kind of not direct the manager per se, but to help, I guess, influence your own needs in terms of resources and things like that. If that makes sense, it kind of served two purposes. It kept this manager informed who otherwise wouldn't have been, out of their own choice to not be involved, but it also put you in a position to be more successful because you could articulate your needs in addition to providing kind of the background.
So what what do most people get wrong? Let me try that again because that sounded like I was drunk. What do most people get wrong about managing up? I'll give my quick take on it is I think most people what they get wrong about managing up is trying too hard. And this is just something I've seen, like trying too hard to adapt to or to read their boss's mind, to maybe to make their life easier. They are maybe compromising. I don't know if values might be a little strong, but maybe losing some of themselves to try and adapt to what their management wants, and in the meantime not being an effective leader. An example would be something like, hey, what I'm getting from up top isn't working, right? And instead of saying, hey, I don't know that this will work and here's why, right? You don't have to be just completely insubordinate about it, but you know providing a constructive feedback to your higher up. um it ends up just being a mess, and then all of a sudden things are happening and going full circle back up to the top again. And I've seen it happen where um when it does that full circle thing, the message down is, well, why didn't you tell me this wouldn't work? And like, it's so instead of doing your best to mitigate that, and when there is things coming down the pipe that aren't going to work, establishing, building up that relationship and that trust, that say, hey, John Flanagan, this isn't going to work. I need, and here's why. This particular version of this, let's work together on something that will work because XYZ, or there's contractual issues, whatever the case might be. But I would say the number one of the biggest problems that I think most people get wrong is not being too hesitant to feedback, or provide feedback that might not directly and always agree with what their bosses are saying.
Makes sense. I think the other thing that can be dangerous is when you approach it as you're basically trying to pacify your boss by letting the person know that you're doing just enough to not be questioned, but you're not necessarily providing important context or potential challenges that you're facing. It's like, "Oh, I'm doing this. I'm still on track for my deadline."
Yeah,
Whatever. When
exactly.
you know that stuff is going off the rails and you're too proud or whatever it is you're like, "All right, I'll get everything corrected before, it becomes the next week or whatever the next, report period is." And then you get to that report period, you're like, "Oh shit, I'm even
Yeah,
farther behind. Like I'll
yeah.
fix it." So, "Oh, Ernie, things are looking great. Like, we're still on track on time and budget." And then before you know it, it's like everything has gone completely off the rails. And it's like, well, I was reporting.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I wanted to point out is, like, you can respect someone and respect your boss and respect everybody and still disagree with them and still challenge them. Like, I've always I've always said in our staff meetings that we have with the team, or whether it's the office staff only or drive staff, everybody, like, I'm not afraid of feedback. Like, the last thing I want to do is be stuck in an echo chamber. So by all means, if you think I'm screwing up, or you think that there's a better way to do this, by all means, come talk to me. Like, let's hear it. Like, it might not be what you think it's going to be. It might not be what I think it's going to be. More often than not, it's something that where we meet in the middle, and it works beautifully. So just understanding that, that part of managing up, it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of disrespect. It's a sign of, hey, we all have our eyes on the same goal. Let's see how we can get there together. And in the meantime, let's not kill each other. you know?
And also the kind of piece that I touched on before is also translating the information and the data in a way that is best well received, rather than just dumping it. Like taking all of the stuff and say, "Hey, Ernie, we have a problem. Check this out," whatever. And you're like, "Well, what do I do with all of this?" I don't even know where to start because I haven't looked at this. But just being very clear in what your messaging is, what the potential issues, or maybe it's not even issues, maybe it's just an update, but providing the data, like we said, in a clear and concise way that also speaks to whatever you may need, if it's resources or an adjusted deadline or whatever it is, and the why. Oh, one other thing that I think is really important is I learned over time that the order in which you present information can also help and be
Yes.
but it can reduce challenges, because when you come in problem first and then
Yeah.
you provide your recommendation or whatever at the end, it's like you already read it, and now your mind as a manager or whoever, you're starting to try and solve it as you're reading, and you have your own idea of how to attack it, and then you get down there, it's like, oh well, okay, they have this recommendation, blah blah blah, but now I'm already here. So I think if you switch it, provide your solution up front, and then at the end, the problem that you're trying to address through the solution, I think it helps, because then they're on board with your solution before they get focused on the problem.
Yeah, that's I've actually had that feedback from one of my mentors and former bosses. Is like, Ernie, you're burying the lead. The whole time you're talking about what's going on, I'm trying to come up with a solution, or
Yeah,
the
see?
wheels are turning back over here, and then you give me something that's even better. Don't waste my time. And like, oh,
Exactly.
oh,
See, you're
yeah,
living
exactly.
proof.
Yeah. So when you were saying that, I was just like replaying that conversation when Danny in my head. Oh, I gave his doesn't matter. He's cool, dude. About him being like, dude, we just wasted 30 fucking minutes, bro.
It'd be
But yeah,
really
don't
cool
don't bury the lead.
if you listened to the show.
I know, right? I need to reach out to him. He's awesome. So if one of upon reflection of the episode, if you ever felt frustrated with leadership above you, ask yourself one thing: how well do they actually understand your world? And it goes back to what you were just saying about clearly communicating with them. What a simple tip I'll give here is, man, as much as it kind of sucks to say, sometimes senior leadership, and I'm putting myself in that a little bit too, that we get so busy that to kind of what we just said, hey man, get to the point, facts only, Jack. What do we got? You know, um, and when your boss is telling you that, for me, I know it as a sign of, oh shoot, I didn't communicate clearly enough. I need to really paint a better picture of what's going on here. And the best way, in my experience, to do that is to be very data driven, right? Lead with, hey, I have 1,200 kids I got to get to school every single day. I have a total of 30 drivers. How do we do that? Right? We need 65 or 70, right? Immediately in your head, those numbers start to make sense. Like, oh shit, they're only operating at 50% of their total staff levels. Okay, what do we got to do? Do I then I'm in my boss's head because I know he's or they or she or whoever,
Mhm.
they're also trying to help me fix this. So be data driven, because anybody can talk the talk. There's a lot of people out there that can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? People that are in senior leadership know this. So They know that money talks and BS walks. So in our case, data walks or data talks. So lead with data, be very data driven, paint that picture quick and in an effective manner because of everything, the totality of what everyone's dealing with, and to also communicate and paint a clear picture of this is the need, this is what we got to do, and what's the consequence if we don't, or this is the problem because we are not right. So if you're frustrated with that, do a better job of communication.
I have a post-it here on my monitor that says clarity
Okay.
beats competence, and it is something that I have to continually remind myself because I have been in situations where it's like you want to like it makes sense in your head, right? You see everything. You see the problem, how to handle it, the solution. And when I'm trying to explain it to you, your time is limited. It's like you're focused on me, but you also have a ton of other things going on. And when I'm running in circles trying to describe why it's important and I can see the vision, but I'm trying to present it in a way that uh uh is important to me or that I think is most effective rather than the way that is most effective for you, which is something I touched on earlier, but making sure that not only the message is clear and you're not rambling like I'm probably doing right now, but you want to be clear and concise and you want it the way that the other person will receive it, not the way that you think you should deliver it.
Communicating to be heard, right? That's one of the man. I shouldn't have went down this rabbit hole about because I read it in a book and I was going to say it's by this author in this book, and then all of a sudden, as soon as I said it, it's like gone. I think it's one of the seven habits of
Deadly
highly
sense
effective
or
people.
oh.
Yeah, communicating to be heard, not just to talk. Oh, did you say something and I missed it? Because you
I
have a
said
look on
one
your
of
face like
you
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 just
said
talking.
7 and I said, "Oh, deadly sense."
Corny Ryan joke.
Yeah, it wasn't funny enough to repeat, but there you have it.
I'm glad I couldn't hear well enough just to have you repeat it. But yeah, communicating with intent and communicating to be understood, not just heard. Uh,
Mhm.
um, yeah, and not to just belabor the point, but or belabor the point is like um, a lot of times it feels good to talk because it feels good to just right get it off your chest and get it out there. But that's not always the most effective communication tool. So yeah,
What's the best example of, managing up that you've had to where you thought maybe, one way it was gonna not work out and it was surprisingly well?
um, the so going back to an example I gave earlier of the current my current place of employment is again we the dirty truth is well not dirty truth the ugly truth is like it just takes a lot of money to make these things work, right? To I mean to look at the price of diesel like or the gas, look at the last time you had to change tires on your car. Now think about that number and multiply it by 400 vehicles that are in our fleet here at this district. So that number begins to get exponentially bigger with each passing year. And without getting into the politics of inflation and all that jazz, we all know that it, 10 years ago, it was cheaper to live. And then you go back 10 years and it's cheaper to live, right? So we know that in in our world, the money just keeps on piling up, right? Not that we're going in, going out. It
Well,
goes,
the wages are creeping at a snail's pace, but that's a
yeah,
completely different topic and
right, right.
yeah.
So said all that to say, like, it takes money to make this stuff work. And when we all have to petition and advocate for our all of our worthy goals, right? Of whatever you're doing, um, we have to petition. So I think early on, there was a new boss. It was during his first couple of months, and that's that's when they get hit up a bunch, either when they first get in there or when they're leaving, right? The people at my level, my colleagues are like, "Hey, well, he's leaving. You don't give it, let's see if I can get him to squeeze this out," or you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Um, kind of kind of working the system, if you will, not really the system. I don't want to make it sound dirty, but there are tactics that we use right? To advocate for our folks in our department to get the funding we need. Um, and so anyway, like there was I learned early on that the new boss is very much a visual guy, and he loves very much data driven.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were having a meeting where he's like, okay, I need to meet with this department head, and transportation. We have, I'm just going to say $100, and each of you need $50. So I have 100, not 150. How are we going to make this work? So it was basically a meeting that boiled down to all three department heads at making their case for why they needed X amount of dollars, their share of this $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went first, and I knew that my man's liked a good PowerPoint presentation that had a lot of data, boom, boom. And, other guys, I say guys, there's a couple females there. Other folks just had, a list of do's and don'ts on or needs, and it's just written out, and they were just going to talk about it in a meeting. Well, when I get done with my presentation, like one of the other department heads is
Just
like,
got up and left.
one of them's like, I don't even think I should waste my time. I think Ernie should get that money. It's hilarious, man.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, that was a good tip out there, man. Know what they like. And of course it ended up, I did get, not everything I was asking for. Of course it's impossible. We can't, there's only $100 to go around. But yeah, that worked out well at that time.
No, that's great. Oh, so the way that you presented everything, obviously, you took the care, but at the end of it, I would recommend to anybody that goes through managing up, anytime you get an agreement or anything, document what the agreement was, what the expectations are. It will save your butt more than I can even describe, especially when you have a manager that is, conflict averse and does not like to get into, oh well, I never said that, blah blah blah, whatever. It's like, well, right here,
That's a
stamp
great
and
point.
stamp and date, document everything.
Yes, I'll add to that because I've had instances where that has literally saved me from a lot of trouble. I gave this one tip at a networking conference we were at, and it wasn't even we were just having a conversation with I was having a conversation with 3 or 4 other directors, and I just casually happened to mention that I have a CYA file, and they're like, CYA? I'm like, yeah, cover your ass. I have an online in my drive. It's literally titled CYA that I put in there because of the nature of, and I don't think this is exclusive to school business. I think this is everywhere. There are times that the decision isn't necessarily it's out of your hands, right? And your hands are tied, and you can only do so much. So if there was a time where I was like, I feel very strongly about this. I think this should go this way with this employee, and we're putting ourselves at a huge liability, huge risk, and no one's listening to me. So I'm just gonna put this in writing. Like we had this conversation right in person, but just to follow up, hey, as a follow up to our meeting, I just want to say I will follow whatever direction is given. However, my severe and strong recommendation is that we follow this path, and then send that off in an email, print a PDF, and throw it in that CYA file.
You know
And
you're gonna
that's
need
just
to
what's that?
change the name of that file now, right?
Why?
So if you have a superintendent or whatever the hell is at the top that is like, oh, I really hate Ernie, I'm gonna get IT to go in and delete his CYA file now.
I have print backups too. Come on, man. Double backup. Have it on drive
I have a
around your neck.
CYA folder that's labeled on my shelf too.
No, I just gave that one example of, now you got me nervous. He won't do that.
No,
He
I'm
knows.
sorry. You're a good guy. Nobody's out to get you.
No, it's there's multiple ways of how that CYA file can work. Saying, hey, I there was another site, another facility where I saw something and went to report it, and for whatever reason, the powers that be decided to go, left when I think they should have went right. Here it is in writing. again, document. And then not only that, like documentation is such a great way to remember where you were on certain things, because if I mean, you've been in logistics before. There's 55 fires that you got to put out in 7 hours. And when you're on fire 52, fire number one gets rekindled, and then you got to go back and, oh, where was I? So great tip, by the way. And now we truly are rambling.
Yeah, well, no, I think that your CYA is good. Like, I need to get more organized because mine is all in the form of Post-its all over my desk or notebooks that are just full of dates and times that I recorded stuff, but they just end up in a pile of stuff and out of sight, out of mind. So when I need it, I never have it. But then when I'm flipping through, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good note. I should hang on to that.
Should remember that. That guy was smart that wrote that
Ugh.
down. Hey, that's my handwriting.
No, organization is still definitely a skill that I very much need to improve. Not the act of taking the notes and then applying everything. It's maintaining after the fact that is, it bites me.
So in closing, managing up. Final thoughts.
I think the biggest keys are things that we touched on before, are navigating with a clear and concise message, paying attention to the position that your manager is in and what that position is within your organization or department, the competing priorities, different projects, different departments, how much is being funneled in, and try to be respectful of what those competing priorities are and know where you fit in the grand scheme of things, and know that what you have is extremely important to you, but it may not be the most important thing in the world to the department at that time. And just having that, I guess, frame of reference. And then lastly, as we mentioned, being able to tailor it to the manager or whoever that you're communicating with. It's not always going to be a manager. It could be a client or a board member or somebody, or a customer. It could be somebody that isn't necessarily directly responsible for what you're doing, but it's still that sense of managing up and being able to present the information in the way that it will be best received and most beneficial to move that item forward.
Wonderfully said. And before we get out of here, and before we get to our wonderful tagline, Ryan, I want to remind our listeners, like John Flanagan and like everyone else, to subscribe on YouTube, comment, like, feedback, wherever you listen. We greatly appreciate it. We love hearing from you. Ryan, I love you. You're my best friend. And thank you so much for doing this with me. Leading ain't easy.
But you don't have to do it alone.
Miss something? Should I have said until next time, leading ain't easy?
Oh, you're fine. You pulled the old switcheroo on me, though.
I did. Later, buddy. Love you.
Love you too, bud.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Erny helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.